You're listening to the Pro Status Podcast.
Well, guys, welcome back to the Pro Status Podcast, and today is a very special episode. We're going to be talking about something that I find really cool and a passion of mine, which is LED. But not just that, is we have a guest on the show with us today. We have Eddie Suparman on the podcast with us today. He is down in his office in Los Angeles. And Eddie owns Concept Pixels, which is a company out of LA. They have multiple offices now, and they specialize in LED for house of worship, live events, Hollywood now a little bit, and we can get into that. But Eddie, welcome to Pro Status.
Thanks for having me.
So how long have you been a part of Concept, and what kind of started Concept Pixels?
Well, I mean, actually, so Concept Pixels, we formed it as a production company, to live entertainment in 2016 of May. So it was about 5 years is how long have we been going. But before that, funny story in 2009 or 2010. Concept Pixels was a wedding photography and videography company.
Wow, nice. I didn't know that.
Partners, which everyone did like wedding videos and photography, and then I think that only lasted like 2 years, and then it dissolved, and that's where we all went our separate ways. But we still had the name, and that's when we brought it back in 2016 to specialize in events. And originally, we were going to just produce events and not really, own any equipment, but that quickly turned the next year.
And so you got into the LED game pretty quick. Mm-hmm. I remember doing a My City event in Sacramento with some of your first product that you got. So what made you go into the LED game right away?
That was actually an accident.
Nice.
But I don't really say accident. Nothing's an accident, but
right.
That we fell into it because there was a used product that became available, and we picked it up as a used product. And, we bought it. I partnered with another company to buy a large batch of it. And we weren't going to buy anything, but we had the capital from doing, audio, video, and lighting and broadcast at the time for the first year of Concept. So after that, we decided to, the opportunity came where someone offered us to buy a used product, take it off their hands, and potentially sell it, to broker it out. But we decided to keep it and, use it as rental inventory. And it was a lot of learning as far as, owning inventory, especially used gear, and a lot of maintenance. My city conference, we literally bought it and shipped it out the next day and didn't even QC anything.
Oh, wow.
Which showed when it arrived.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that.
So, I wasn't even there to the first conference. It's the first show it was at. I think I was on tour, actually. And when we did buy it, we shipped it straight, just loaded it on the truck and shipped it straight to my city conference. And I know there was a lot of people complaining about it. So,
hey, we made it work though. In the end, the show, that was honestly one of my favorite events. Still, it was a lot of fun and everything. In the end, I
think we sent about 180 tiles on that one, and that was a little more than half of what we had. But we sent that because it was a pretty cool design. I think Aaron Broman designed it, if I'm not mistaken.
He did, yeah.
He also, PM'd the job too. So
yeah.
And I think that was our first time working with you as well. At least our guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Your guys. So, yeah.
that was a fun one. Which are those tiles the ones that Bethel has now? Those are the same.
Currently owns that, and potentially buying more of that version.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on with that yet, but we'll see.
So those tiles are they're Unilumin branded tiles, which Unilumin is one of the brands that I know you work with and we work with a little bit, as well as Row is like the other main big brand. And whenever I'm talking with churches, the brand conversation comes up, of course, of like what brand of LED to buy.
Yep.
And Row can be more expensive. Unilumin's still even a little bit more expensive than some of these other cheaper companies. And I mean I get ads that pop up on Facebook all the time from get into LED and like here's a packaged price, it's you want a wall this size, it's the X amount of dollars. And I cringe when I see that because I'm like, oh, I know how many times I've had to replace that product from someone else. But for the person that doesn't know anything, what are the reasons why we are always pushing brands like Unilumin or Row when we're trying to, when they're trying to get into LED for the first time?
I mean, one of the main reasons is obviously quality and just the way it's built. Row is, vetted by Row for one. I like to see Row, and I think a lot of people could agree as number one LED manufacturer in the world. Mm-hmm. Second would be, and debatable, it would be Unilumin, which is, the top two is what on our list is at least the top two in regards to functionality, being user friendly, and just the way it's built and its longevity. It goes a long way. Row is highly reputable in the film entertainment business, the touring market, a lot of everything which you see on TV, whether it's broadcast sports, some really high level films and blockbuster movies that are out there. Most likely was Row was used on that. Right. And they just have the name, and that's one of the main reasons. But a lot of people don't know is the internal assembly of Row. That is a big factor on why we push that, because and I could give you guys examples. We had a show where client was using a cheaper wall, and during rehearsals everything was fine, nobody in the room, but as soon as the room filled up, and it was a quite an extremely large show with a high VIP status level keynote speaker, and as soon as everyone walked in and the room got filled, the president of this company went live, and half the IMAG wall, just stage left of the keynote speaker, went off because of internal RF frequency intermittence. So, people don't understand that side of things, and a lot of these products, and you guys know as well, a lot of these products cheap out when it comes to internal cabling, internal copper, versus Row. A lot of Row's products are, a lot of Row's internal cabling are extremely expensive, and I think sometimes gold plated, depending on the product. They'll use gold plated cabling versus the copper stuff. But which puts Row on a different level, in different category as far as pricing is concerned. They're number one, but they're going to be, twice the cost of Unilumin, and right. It shows. Yeah. So, we'll push Row as much as we can, but obviously if it's a budgetary constraint for many churches, we'll always push number two, which is Unilumin. And Unilumin works great. There's not so much gripe about it. I like Unilumin based off of Novastar. I like programming on the Novastar software, and as well as Brompton. Don't get me wrong, but Novastar, it's one of the first things I've learned, and a lot of trial and error, as Drake, on tour together. But You know, Unilumin has kept up and tried to, improve every single product. So, a lot of LED manufacturers don't really do that. A lot of them just do it for the finance and the money, and don't really care what the customer says or what the customer needs. At least, between Rowe and Unilumin, those two manufacturers cater to what their clients' needs and wants are. So, those are the main reasons why we'll use them at least on a lot of installs and events.
And I think the other thing that people don't think about when it comes to doing like a no name product from someone versus a big name product is the support behind it. Once you get those no name tiles, you're likely to not get any support. And if anything happens to those tiles, good luck fixing them, replacing them. Versus Uni or Rowe are they stand behind their product, and so the support is fantastic. Even I've worked with Rowe where the internal jumpers were an issue, and they fixed them for the client. They came out, and they fixed all those internal jumpers because they want to stand behind their product, and so that's just one of those support things that people.
I was there for that.
They don't think
great.
about it. They just think about cost savings right now. This product's cheaper and I can get it,
Yeah, and it's also great because their support is located here in the US and you're not waiting for somebody overnight to contact you while you're sleeping. You could get support same day, just one phone call away when you need something, and they'll answer and send you whatever you need by the next morning if there are any issues. So that's what I love about it.
Or walk you through any of the software things that are like
one thing I was going to comment though, from a video perspective, the LED can look amazing, and there's always well-meaning, kind guys in church. There's oftentimes a LED reseller in your church or something.
Oh yeah, of course.
And they got their best product, they want to donate it to the church, and or they want to hook them up with some special deal and all that kind of stuff, and bless their heart, right? They're trying to help you, and you put it in, and you find out, dang, the color's terrible,
or it doesn't look good on camera.
And it looks awful. That's the big thing for me. It's like
ones.
The discount stuff, time and time again. Either one, you think I have this great product at a good deal. It looks beautiful until you put video on, like actual video, and then it all falls apart. And then you're thinking, oh great, I got this great screen in my venue. I'm going to be able to sell and like rent this thing out and make money, make my investment back. But it doesn't work. It falls apart. The colors are so far off that it's not even usable. And from a brand image, when you're trying to create a brand, you're investing in these assets, these visual assets or creative assets. And if the wall can't keep up or provide it, it's pretty useless. And it does show it really matters.
Well, and that's just like even color representation for like using for iMac. That's become nowadays you can get an LED wall pretty close to buying a really nice projector, in like the 16 foot by 9 foot area, and so it's like we've been pushing LED iMac a lot. But if the color doesn't reproduce right, then your iMac is just like also really, really weird.
Well, we've learned from some of our friends, like being able to hold your phone up and take a picture and it look good.
Oh yeah.
That's worth a lot to a lot of people.
Yep.
And
not
LED
a lot
is
of
like the
products
biggest,
will do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it seems like we're being snobby about it, but honestly, we're talking business. Like that stuff actually matters. So the margin saved, like how is that really worth it? You know?
Yeah.
Don't worry, Eddie. I'll sell LED for you.
No, I mean we've been in. I'm sure Eddie more than myself, but countless, rooms where they bought a product and we either go in and we have to replace all the internal parts for them, or they're paying us to do this, but we're replacing all the internals for them, redoing, sadly replacing some of the actual LED, like all of it, because it's just like this isn't going to work, and it hurts to see you paid that much for it, honestly, and then you like just a slightly tiny bit more, and you could have had an actual name brand.
Would have been better to wait.
Worth it, I think the cost savings is so marginal now. I know when LED first came out, it was quite expensive to get into, and the house of worship market was slower to adopt because only big shows could afford it. But now it's a lot of it's come down in price to where it's pretty reasonable to get into a package. But the reason why, and I know you don't, and Octane doesn't, like, they don't post the prices because every project's different, and it's just there isn't like a price. I don't know. Yeah.
It's all customizable, and everything's changing constantly. Where, especially shipments coming from. I mean, almost all LEDs, created in China, and it still has to come here. So, costs are fluctuating consistently, whether they're dropping the price or they're raising it substantially. So, that's constantly changing. And, one of the things that I wanted to mention was I had a client who probably a few years ago asked us to service one of their walls, and they tried contacting the manufacturer and they weren't getting any response. And after researching like what was going on and like trying to find out about this company, it turns out they had spent almost $500,000 on the LED wall 5 years back, and it turns out this company no longer exists. So we've come across quite a few of those, where it's they'll buy this no-name brand for a lot of money, and a few years down the line they have major issues, and these companies are no longer existing. So they're stuck with it, or they just have to give it away to somebody else and buy a whole new wall, if they want to keep that look. So it's important to, in my eyes, and I'm sure with you guys, it's important to really vet the products you guys buy before you buy it, and make sure there's history with them, and see what the trends are before even deciding on something that large, rather than getting trigger happy in pulling the purchase extremely fast just because it's a good deal. That's usually when someone says it's a good deal. Long term, a year or two down the line, it's an extremely bad deal.
Right. Yeah. Well, and even the product that Bethel bought from you, that was old when we bought it, and we're still using it to this day. And yeah, and it was already a couple years old at that time, and toured, and it's still being used like every day. And it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, it wasn't cheap by any means, but we bought a quality product and it's still functional. And obviously we've had to repair a few, but that's going to happen with any AVL equipment that's old. You have to repair it, but
old, used, and toured with.
Yeah, exactly. So. But we spent the money, we bought a good product, and it's still usable, which is kind of the bottom line. That return on investment is lasting a long time and will continue to last a long time, because even when Bethel moves into their new building, that LED is still going to be used at this campus, at the current campus, for who knows how many years, And
especially with Bethel, they're producing so many new songs, events, and it's like being used every day, and it's just living proof that, the longevity of it, it's like, you guys don't have any major problems. And it's something that, if you do, you guys can take care of it, no problem, without having to worry about finding, who could, are these guys going to answer me?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the 4 tiles that weren't working, it was an easy email to uni. They got it set up. We got the RMAs. We shipped them off, and 3 weeks later they came back working, and the pixels were fixed. And it was just like, not every brand is going to give that support.
That's so
to
true.
You.
I think too, like, one of the cool things about having quality is that usually means creativity. You can do more.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not as inhibited by lack.
Yeah.
You're able to do more fun things. And I think during COVID, because I think we have a quality product, we were able to experiment with, use them as light fixtures and really use them in some different ways, which I don't know. If you got a cheaper product, it's just not really going to work very well. But they were extremely bright. Color was really accurate. And so by being able to use them as a color source, or at least a light source, it really changed what we could do on camera.
So, Jesse, you brought up a really good point, which is a better quality product can give more creativity, and more creativity in your set design. And, we did the box set during COVID, which is basically like a 360 set with some LED up above a white scrim, using it to like light a white scrim.
We didn't have enough light fixtures to flood the
or
lid.
Good enough light fixtures, and an LED tile, 20 inch by 20 inch tile is a great light fixture that is very washy. It's just a pure wash. And so we put like 8 of them up above our 30 foot by 12 foot scrim, and it just,
extremely
washed
soft,
it, and it was awesome.
Really beautiful.
But that goes into our product, because it has the way it's designed, the way it's made, it allows us to hang it, face down. And that comes from quality, and that's where like the quality product enables creativity like this. But not all products are created equal, even not just from the color representation, but how it's physically made, which means you can only mount it certain ways.
Oh, yeah. We should probably talk about that, a little bit of safety. Eddie, you probably have things to say about that. Safety products. I know that people are going to ask about, they're going to bring up that picture of the LED wall that fell.
Okay, most of the time, and Eddie could say this, but a lot of times the LED falls is like, it's like when they use a non-blow-through product outside, and then the wind just knocks it over.
Yeah.
It's like, there's products made for that.
I think the one that people saw that was just so much tile. Did they go on break or something and one of the quick links like slipped or something?
Well, there's the big one in Vegas, and then there's the one that just happened in Miami. Yeah.
I get asked about that all the time. All the time.
Well, okay, yeah, there is safety measures to do with LED. Like, it's a lot of weight. LED weighs a lot.
Yeah. People think they could. I mean, I've had the calls where people think, and I really despise doing this, but they think they could mount it however they want. Hey, here's some zip ties. That's the biggest thing that I extremely am against. Zip ties and ratchet straps. No matter how many times people tell me, "Oh, ratchet straps are safe. Ratchet straps are safe," and I was like, they could hold it, but it's not meant to do what you're trying to do. The whole variable weight, especially when something's in motion, you're rigging, anything that has especially being in California, there's a lot more restrictions. People, the ground moves here. So, that's something that everyone, that's not from here doesn't have to deal with, but then people that are outside of California usually deal with weather, storms, wind. But even then, safety is a big factor when it comes to LED. And some of these products don't, they'll just fall apart when it comes to that. I've had some of my, techs tell me a lot of, horror stories where they were setting up a wall for a certain company, and that had a different product that wasn't, it was an outdoor product, but it was a cheap outdoor product. Modules during wind would fly off the tiles, and it had the potential of hitting somebody in the face. And those things, as you know, are not, they're pointy. It could definitely, it hurt. It would definitely hurt and leave some damage. So, those are the things that we look at. And, now a lot of people, because of that, situation, a lot of these manufacturers started putting safety cable on their modules to attach it to their product. And one of the things that don't make sense is they put it on their safety cables are put in on their indoor tiles.
Yeah.
That one I don't quite understand. As long as you got somebody on both sides of the wall or taking apart a module, you're fine. And it's,
Right.
that was meant more for wind rating. But essentially, safety is a big thing when it comes to rigging, because one, it's flying over people's heads. Two, if anything happens, people get hurt, things get damaged, and as far as our crew and everyone who puts these together for our events and our installs, it's number one. We got to make sure this product can withstand what it's supposed to do and not fail, because liability on that is huge, especially if you're on a stage and you don't have enough counterweight. And I've seen a lot of videos about this, and like AV disasters on Facebook or whatever, of the walls just tipping over, and it's those situations, it'll be a company or somebody that thinks they know what they're doing, and it'll just collapse. We've all seen that. I mean, a lot of us have seen that video of the news LED wall. I think it was
Yeah.
Fell right on the anchor. It's crazy, but people need to understand simple physics, and I feel like just because you have the product and it doesn't mean you could do whatever with it, and it's meant to be seen, but it's not meant to do crazy designs. And I've had to do some crazy designs where it's like, I don't know if I should have done that, and you learn from it, and you try to do better on the next one and try to make sure everything's safe, make sure everyone's safe, and thankfully, you're not on the news.
Exactly.
That's as a company owner and as a business owner, and that's one thing that I'll definitely and your business and your career.
Oh yeah, I think about it all the time whenever we're setting up LED or anything that we're hanging. I'm always just like, oh man, this is so scary. Even though we're doing everything correctly, everything is to spec. It's just like,
one example is when we did Heaven Come, when we did the giant 60-foot by 30-foot LED lid. That was safety on safety on safety on safety. Having 30,000 pounds fly over people's. First of all, it's not over the main audience head; it's over the artist. So if anything does happen, everyone's going to know about it.
Of course.
So, we were extremely careful to make sure everything is covered. All our bases are covered in regards to flying this thing. Us working with Daniel Connell and you guys in flying this thing, and making sure every aspect of safety was brought up. We safety cabled every single tile that was on there. We safety cabled every frame to the truss and also used physical hardware, half cheese burrows, schedule 40 steel pipes, to get that angle. Every motor, every 1-ton motor had a load cell on it, and this is just me geeking out with how we did it. We were able to see every load that was every single motor, what the weight was carrying, which was, for a 1-ton, we were only pulling like 300 pounds per 1-ton, and that was, just to make sure, if there was a failure somewhere, we know where it is and what's not, pulling correctly. We had about, I think it was 20 motors on that whole, ceiling, and every single row of motors, are upstage, downstage, and, center of the wall, the lid, each row of motors could carry the entire weight of the structure in case anything failed. So, we made sure that, that was there in place. If one section of motors were to fail, the entire weight of the ceiling could be held by the first sets of motors. So we had like four safeties of just backup on motors alone.
Wow.
Then we had the whole truss situation, and then also Schedule 40 pipes and half cheese barrows and cheese barrows. Everything was a physical attachment, safety with safety cable and whatever you could do. Because I think before that there was not a lot of people. There's not a lot of people doing what we did at Bethel, and I think it was only Kendrick Lamar that did a ceiling for his tour, and that itself was not as I don't think it was as large as what we did with Bethel.
I don't think so.
It was probably half the size, if anything, but I could be wrong. But we just wanted to make sure, hey, this is potentially dangerous, and potentially could kill somebody. So we don't want that liability. And
I think the dream for that one was that it would extend out even further, but it was just way too much.
Yeah.
Oh, we actually cut the size of that by half, because it was supposed to be a 60 by 60 square, protruding over the
for the audience a little bit.
The audience, like 20 seats or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Which would have been great, but man, that was labor intensive already.
Yeah, I mean, we went up pretty fast. We, that build for LED side of things went up in like 5-6 hours on and everything. We did have to go into the next day to make sure everything was working, but rigging, that obviously took quite a bit, and then our wall went up pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's just something to remember if you're wanting to do some crazy designs is, maybe make sure that your product can support that. But if you are uncertain about if it's going to work or if it's safe, maybe contact an integrator of some sort, just to get that double check. And if you are unsure about hanging weight in your room,
oh man, yeah,
a structural engineer, like we tell most people, if we're going to hang something for the first time in the room, we need a structural stamp on this that, your roof your I-beams, whatever, can hold X amount of weight. Just because you think it can doesn't mean that it always can hold that much weight.
I know.
Yeah.
I never, yeah.
I think it's fine.
Doesn't mean anything, yeah.
No.
How many times I've been wrong? That's scary. So I don't want to be the guy. I'd rather get that stamp.
Well, there was one install that we did where the structural guy was very involved with the whole thing, and we ended up, each motor had to take the weight of the whole wall was what they wanted, and so we did 4 2-ton motors, so that way each motor could hold the weight of the entire wall. That was kind of crazy. It's like, this is a little overkill, but okay, that's fine.
Wow.
But so what are some exciting things happening in the LED world? I mean, the technology is changing constantly, but what are some of the new exciting things going on in the LED space right now?
Well, I mean, LED product in general is, always enhancing, and it's just getting better in regards to, live shows. But really, they've stepped up the game in, implementing it in motion picture and films. I want to say during COVID, the lockdowns, it really blew up right before. So that is like a new game that everyone's wanting to do, but doesn't realize how much this costs. It's like I said earlier, the some of the biggest things that you're seeing on TV is shot in front of LED, and you don't even know it. For instance, like Mandalorian, that's a highly recognizable series that's out that anyone and everyone in the LED game and production in general knows that they shot that entire thing, 90% of it at least, in an LED volume, an LED space, and the fact that that's old technology, and old meaning within the last 10 years. People have been doing something similar to that before they realized they could do an entire room with LED. They used to use projection. They used to use simple light movements, shadows, all that stuff. But LED really got involved. And this was back when I was at the GPS days and working with guys like Paul Modal, who was involved in projects like the Oblivion, where they use projection at 360 degree or 270 degree projection, just like the Mandalorian, but projectors to reflect onto highly reflective surfaces. And they use that same concept, but now with LED, which produces a lot more light. And it's a lot more sustainable in regards to, you're not worrying about lamp hours. You're not worrying about overheating. You're not worried about cooling. LED still emits a lot of heat, but it's not, you're not dealing with the sound of a projector fan,
It's a big one.
And that in, a sense is a game changer in regards to what it's being used now, what LED is being used on now. So, I want to say like film is probably the biggest, if not the most high demand that's wanting specifically RAW, and specifically RAW and only RAW. If there's anybody that's using other than RAW, good luck, because whoever's shooting on that is not going to be happy. For instance, we did a commercial with a client for the Dallas. We've done quite a few for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and it was their first time working with LED. They've never worked with it before. Their DIT was pretty skeptical about it at first because they've never worked with it, and we've had. We did a slight curve on the small wall, 32-foot wall, and they wanted to originally key everything in and do everything in post, but the director wanted to try something new, and this was before COVID, and she wanted to try LED, and that's where she brought us in. So they shot it. They loved how everything looked. At the end of it, once the product was done, she thanked us and said, "You saved us $360,000 by not replacing anything and not doing everything in post, because that's how much it was going to cost if they had done green screen." So cost savings for, obviously the upfront cost is more, and a lot of people don't realize it, but upfront cost is more, but then in film they're saving a lot more in post because it's a lot less work, a lot less replacement. There's things that you need to replace, but for the most part, they don't, and it's something they come across many times. And at least a lot of the clients we've worked with, it's like they're not having to do as much work as they used to. And it just made their workflow easier in regards to, anything film related.
Right.
And everybody could see the product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's huge. Not just morale, but everyone's on the same page. It's creatively more exciting. I think even it's interactive.
Well, and the
it's better
actors
for the actor.
too. Yeah. The actors being able to see what the space that they're acting in and not having to like imagine it and fake it is huge. Yeah, exactly. Now with all the motion tracking too, it's like when you're turning the steering wheel in a car, it's actually turning the image on the screen. And it's like you're actually driving in real space.
That's
which
crazy.
is just wild.
That's absolutely crazy.
And that was actually a project we were supposed to do back in February.
Yeah.
And that would have been cool, but obviously budgets.
Right. Yeah. And then also like as far as like post production too, with the LEDs creating the proper reflections. So again, less replacement because you're not, and traditionally you'd use like lights and things to like flash on stuff for like driving scenes or whatever. But now, your driving scene is, all, on LED. So all the reflections on the car are exactly what you're shooting. So it's perfect, which is really, really cool.
That is crazy. I know. I'm just thinking like times where they would key something in, and the actor's not quite on point, and you can tell that it's being keyed in. You're like, it's
or
so
you see
close.
the green. The worst is when you see the green outline. You're like, oh, that was a green screen.
That's what terrifies me about like green screen stuff. It's to me, having the LED in the background isn't not only does it save you money and it's more convenient and blah blah blah, but it mitigates a little bit of risk, I would say, just because if the lighting guy does not get it right,
then
it messes up in post. I mean, it may not ever fit. It may not ever quite work. And obviously, you hire a pro, but I mean, it's still a risk though.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for joining this podcast episode. You can hit up Concept Pixels over on Instagram or their website if you have any needs for LED. I'm sure they would be happy to help you out over there. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you have questions, again, that you want us to answer on the podcast, make sure to hit us up on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, and we'd be happy to, talk about those questions on a future episode.
There's plenty we didn't go over and that we could dive into.
Absolutely.
So if there's something that's interesting to you, make sure you let us know.
And Eddie, thanks for being on here with us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Pro Status Podcast. Be sure to go to the website and download all the episode details.